Candidates are looking ahead to the midterm elections after the result of last night's primary races in Indiana.
Yeah, Wave News reporter Logan Braun is live now to share how the debate over redistricting reshaped the uncertified results.
Well, Brian, we know that was a push by Governor Braun as well as President Trump to have state lawmakers in Indiana redraw congressional districts. Didn't get by the state Senate, however. That's because 21 Republicans in that chamber voted against it. Now, some of them were on the ballots in Indiana yesterday, and they paid the price for their vote. After redistricting failed in Indiana, Kathy Collins, the president of Do Something Southern Indiana, says a message was sent.
Indiana Hoosiers do not want outside interests and outside money telling them what to do in this state.
A response was received at the ballot box Tuesday night. Of the 7 state senators who voted to block new maps and face re-election, 5 lost their seats in the primaries to candidates President Trump endorsed. One race is too close to call. Collins says that will have a big impact later in the year.
We lost 82 years worth of experience in the legislature. Now, I don't necessarily, and we as an organization don't agree with all of these people, but they had the courage of their convictions, and they stood up to that.
Record money was spent in races against Republican incumbents in the primaries. Upwards of $13.5 million was spent on ads, according to ad tracking service Ad Impact. Governor Braun previously said redistricting would protect Hoosiers and argues the state lawmakers, like primary voters, will move towards change.
I've said all along that if you're not doing things in a way that are going to make lives for Hoosiers better, that you can't stick with the same old game plan.
Redistricting is off the table for now, but could always come up again. Collins believes the results of Tuesday's primaries will largely impact and change what happens in this year's midterms.
Come November, a lot of people are going to remember the kind of bullying and pressure that was brought to bear.
Now, on the other side of the aisle, Indiana House Democrats say they had a very good turnout. They highlighted their numbers in Tuesday's elections. They did say in a statement, Hoosiers are ready for change. Reporting live, Logan Braun, Wave News.